Ask any gamer who the ultimate evil is, the boogeyman hiding under their bed, poisoning their water supply and making their dick smaller. All gamers will say the same thing. Electronic Arts. EA Games, it's in your ass. EA Games is known for two things, murdering beloved game studios and loot boxes, and recently they were called into court to defend loot boxes, the ethical nature of them, because it's kind of illegal to get children hooked on gambling, and that's exactly what loot boxes are, a form of gambling that children can partake in. So EA sent an almost human android to the meeting date to discuss the ethical nature of it, and the results may shock you. Number 7 will leave your jaw on the floor.
Do you consider loot boxes to be an ethical feature of your games?
Introducing the gamer's champion, directly confronting the EA menace, asking them the hard-hitting questions right to their face, and even he can't help but giggle at the answers she gives.
Kerry?
Well, first, we don't call them loot boxes. I think that was...
Whatever term you wish to apply to them, do you consider them ethical?
So what we look at as surprise mechanics. But I think it's important to look at this. So,
introducing the champion of the reptilians that work at Electronic Arts. They're trying to peddle loot boxes as surprise mechanics. It's their rebranding attempt because loot boxes now have negative connotation. It's not too dissimilar from the energy department rebranding fossil fuel as molecules of freedom and freedom gas. Anyone's gonna laugh at that. It's fucking silly. It's honestly starting to sound like some dystopian future shit here in terms of its silliness, like North Korea propaganda levels of garbage, you know. Kim Jong-un doesn't fart, he just passes winds of peace. These aren't loot boxes, they're just surprise mechanics.
If you go to a, I don't know what your version of Target is, but a store that sells a lot of toys, and you do a search for surprise toys, what you'll find is that this is something people enjoy. They enjoy surprises.
She's not wrong. People do enjoy surprises, as long as that surprise isn't just taking money out of their wallet. Surprise, you've been robbed, which is kind of EA's slogan.
And so it's something that's been part of toys for years, whether it's Kinder Eggs or Hatchimals or LOL Surprise.
So the robot lady tries to compare EA's disgusting loot box system with pre-established surprise toys that children have been getting for years, such as Kinder Eggs, and it's not really a good comparison. It doesn't really work, and I think anyone with a high-level intellect that watches Rick and Morty regularly can discern the obvious differences. With a Kinder Egg, you're not paying an upfront charge. You are buying the Kinder Egg, and granted, you're not buying the Kinder Egg for the shit-ass chocolate that surrounds the toy. You might as well just eat dirt or fucking chow down on cow vomit. It tastes about the same as the Kinder Egg chocolate. You're buying it for the surprise. But that Kinder Egg is about $2. There's no upfront charge. You don't have to buy something previously before getting to that surprise. With an EA game, you're buying a $60 retail game, and then you're buying your Kinder Eggs that come with surprises that are completely fucking random, where you could get genuinely nothing for it. So it's not exactly the same. A more appropriate comparison would have been buying a set of Kinects or Legos. Let's say you buy the Star Wars Kinect set that has the Millennium ass beater on there, and you want to make that. So you bought that set. Well, you paid for that set, but you got a randomized set of ingredients that can't complete that set. You didn't get the necessary parts for it, so now you need to keep buying micro sets to try and complete that set initially. You see what I'm saying? You're not getting all the parts to what you paid for, and thus you have to keep buying the parts to keep chipping away at finally being able to complete the set you initially paid full retail for. That's a more appropriate comparison, in my opinion, because you're paying a full retail game, and then you're getting little bits and pieces locked behind microtransactions. It's not just cosmetic anymore. With EA games, you're getting actual progression locked behind microtransactions, thus you have to keep paying for it over and over again until you can finally get the complete game or make a competitive team in FIFA.
We do think the way that we have implemented these kind of mechanics, and FIFA, of course, is our big one, our FIFA Ultimate Team and our packs, is actually quite ethical and quite fun, enjoyable to people.
Well, yes, I do say, my good sir, it is actually quite ethical and quite fun, if we EA do say so ourselves. Nothing will make people believe something is unethical and unfun quite like telling them it is fun and ethical. If you have to tell someone that it's ethical and fun, it's most certainly neither of those things. I can 100% promise you no one is having fun opening microtransaction boxes and not getting the rare shit. And most of the time you're not getting the rare shit, you're just getting the same duplicate common shit over and over again. I want you to find me one lunatic that's not thrown in Arkham Asylum that says, yeah, I really enjoy just getting Pot of Greed in every Yu-Gi-Oh card pack I open. What they want is the rare cards, the rare shit in the microtransaction box. That's when it's fun, because they finally got what they wanted, which was locked behind thousands of dollars worth of microtransactions and going through the chore of getting duplicates and getting fucked in the ass and slapped in the face and spit on by EA because the roll rate on their shit is so low that they have to keep spending money on it before they get something they actually want.
We agree with the UK Gambling Commission, the Australian Gambling Commission, and many other gambling commissions that they aren't gambling. And we also disagree that there's evidence that shows it leads to gambling. Instead, we think it's like many other products that people enjoy in a very healthy way, and like the element of surprise.
God, you gotta love that argument right there. We disagree with the evidence that says it's bad. Oh, you disagree with it? Oh, okay, then yeah, that's fine. That makes you right. That means the evidence is wrong because you disagree with it. That's some flat earth logic shit right there. That's exactly what they do. They disagree with the evidence that proves the earth is a globe, so they're going off their own fucking insane beliefs. Yeah, we disagree. Alright, that doesn't make you right. It just means you're a fucking idiot and that you're disagreeing with something to promote your own agenda. It's a non-argument that's really fucking dumb. This whole surprise mechanic shit is absolutely silly. It's so easy to ridicule that statement. You know, a man goes and flashes his penis in a park. Hey, officer, it's not a crime, it's just a surprise penis. People love penis, people love surprises. You do the math.
Okay, so just to be absolutely clear, your loot boxes or surprise mechanics, you have no ethical qualms whatsoever with.
So I think you're recharacterizing my language. What I said is I think the way we've implemented our FIFA Ultimate Team packs is ethical.
Okay, other than FIFA?
Dude's just flopping his cock on the desk, just asking her point blank. I like that he's not mixing words, he's just like, do you think they're ethical? And for some reason she breaks down and says he's recharacterizing her language. His question was quite literally, you think they're ethical, right? And she's just starting to sweat and fucking squirm in her chair. Oh, well, you're recharacterizing what I said. I said FIFA packs are dope as shit and you should buy some. I don't understand. She could have just said, yeah, they're ethical if she truly believed that. But even she knows, even her programming knows, that it is not ethical. It is getting kids and already susceptible people hooked on gambling. That's exactly what the loot boxes monetization system is all about, getting people coming back to keep spending money on a game that they've already paid for, full retail price, so that way they can keep making money off of it.
And other games that you provide, are you equally comfortable and relaxed about?
For all of the games we have on the market that have a randomized content mechanic, a surprise mechanic, a loot box, I have no qualms that they are implemented in an unethical way.
We got her. She just sank her own battleship there. She has no qualms that they're implemented in an unethical way. So they're unethical, and you're okay with that, is basically what that statement says. I think you fucked up your words there, but I'm going to take that as a confession that EA knows they're unethical, because, I mean, obviously, they have to know. Even the soulless suits at EA have to laugh to themselves like, haha, we're extorting these people for money. How dumb are these consumers? Why are they still buying FIFA? Haha, we're releasing the same game and still monetizing it like fucking assholes. But it's working, so whatever. Really silly shit, and I think everyone can easily make fun of EA and their whole surprise mechanic thing they've tried to pull here. So I just wanted to kind of pile on and shit on EA and make fun of their surprise mechanic thing here. That's about it. So yeah. Hi there. I'm about to go on a passionate, joyful rant, so please ensure that your seatbelt is buckled, because I'm about to torpedo my opinions at you like the logs out of Final Destination 1. I am so beyond disgusted and tired of modern greedy video game pricing, and the biggest proponent behind this criminal level of greed is Ubisoft. I've said for the last 3 or so years that nothing makes me lose faith in an upcoming game quicker than seeing a Ubisoft original appear in the trailer. If I was a member of their evil syndicate think tank, my number one suggestion to the board of directors would be hide Ubisoft as much as possible from the credits of these games so people don't know that they're behind these productions. Bury it somewhere so that way people have to go looking to unearth the truth, because no one likes Ubisoft. I'd have more optimism about an upcoming game if it said it was a Bernie Madoff masterpiece. Like, I'd trust anyone more than Ubisoft. I think they have produced almost exclusively stinkers over the last 5, 6, maybe even 7 years. aside from, of course, Rainbow Six Siege, which I think is just an accidental hit for them. And it's an older game, it's a 9-year-old game, and I think the reason that it continues to do well is because Ubisoft forgets that they're involved with it, so they let it do its own thing. But anything Ubisoft gets its grubby little mitts in just is a disaster. Anyone remember the Avatar Legends of Pandora that came out less than a year ago? Didn't think so. And in fact, I bet you didn't even register that I got the name wrong. I double checked. It came out 6 months ago and it's actually called Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. But I imagine some of you watching this did play it and totally forgot about its existence, just like Men in Black Neuralizered out of your mind, but because it was so boring that your brain did its best to defend you from the tedium. It is just a fucking snooze fest that I guarantee you sleptwalk through. Just like mindlessly wandering around in this fugue state of this Ubisoft open world formula that they run into the ground. It's just fucking pitiful productions that they've been behind for the last 5 or 7 years. But before I get too deep into this Ubisoft hate wagon that I'm just vomiting out here, I do want to passionately be excited about something. The Gamer Supps waifu cup with me on it, baby. The most beautiful cup you've ever seen in your life. Look at this goblet. That's me. Yeah, it's available right now at gamersupps.gg. I'll put a link to it in the description. Go ahead and pick that up right now. But the point is, Ubisoft, I don't think has made good games in a while, and I include Assassin's Creed in this. I haven't enjoyed Assassin's Creed in so long. The last good one, and this isn't a controversial opinion, was Black Flag. And I didn't enjoy Black Flag as much as everyone else, but I can recognize that it was probably the last good Assassin's Creed game. And I play all of them. I try them all. Except I only lasted like 4 hours in Mirage because it was such a fucking snooze fest. And Valhalla, I think, is the only time I've ever fallen asleep on stream. Like, they're just boring games. And this is all a long-winded precursor to what I want to talk about today, which is the newest Assassin's Creed game, Shadows, which of course Ubisoft is behind. Now there's a lot of controversy around this, a ton of drama because of the main character here, or one of the main characters. I don't give a fuck about it. I'm just going to tell you right now up top, I'm going to rip the band-aid off. I don't care. I legitimately could not care less about the historical accuracy of the Assassin's Creed franchise. That means about as much to me as the tiny hairs around my asshole. It is truly worthless to me. I wouldn't care if you played as Dobby the House Elf in the new Feudal Japan Assassin's Creed game. Doesn't matter as long as it's a good game, which I don't think that will be because I have no faith in Ubisoft and even less faith in Assassin's Creed. But what I do care about greatly is the pricing that Ubisoft is spearheading here. They just did this for Star Wars Outlaws with like the $100 plus versions, and now they're doing it again for Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I am so fucking tired of it. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. These are your pricing options for the different editions of Assassin's Creed Shadows. So, for the standard edition, it's $70, but you have to pre-order it if you want access to a pre-order exclusive mission. The mission's called Thrown to the Dogs, and the only way you get access to this, it seems, is if you've pre-ordered the game, which they haven't even shown any motherfucking gameplay for yet. I think that is the biggest load of barnacles ever. You're just pre-ordering based off of a cinematic trailer alone. It's a terrible, shameful thing to ask of the consumer, but that's Ubisoft in a nutshell. They're completely shameless. Moving on to the Gold Edition, you get the pre-order bonus plus a Season Pass and 3-day early access. Season Pass in a single-player game is probably one of the most embarrassing things ever that's become commonplace. If I was the goober at Ubisoft that came up with the idea of single-player Season Passes, I would never share that information with anybody ever. You wouldn't be able to torture that out of me at Guantanamo Bay. Batman couldn't beat that shit out of me. That is so fucking embarrassing. And in this case, it's especially egregious because the Season Pass for the Gold Edition includes a mission, so it's just paywalling even more content of the game behind the Season Pass and the higher price tag. And let's talk about that 3-day early access real quick, because I've seen a lot of discussion around it, and they're making great points about it. For 110 clams, you're not paying to play the game 3 days early. You're paying to play it on time. If you pay $70, you're playing the game 3 days late. So it's not early access. For 110 bones, you play the game when it comes out, and unless you fork over the additional 40, you play the game 3 days late. That's how it works. That is extraordinarily anti-consumer. Like, increasing the amount of money just to play the game when it fucking releases is absurd. And then we move on to the Ultimate Edition. For $130, you get pay-to-win elements in a single-player game. 5 skill points and then like a bunch of cosmetics. I'm gonna get a little mean here with some tough love. If you have to pay an additional $60 just for a little bonus pay-to-win in your single-player game, I think you need to take a hard look in the mirror and just recognize that maybe gaming's just not for you. Like, if that's the only way you'll enjoy the game is being able to, like, pay to win through a single-player game, I think maybe, take up a different kind of hobby. I feel like such a fucking Redditor gatekeeping gaming, but that is so unbelievably silly to pay an additional $60 for 5 skill points and then a couple of cosmetics. Like, I'm sure the cosmetics will look cool, but they're not worth almost paying the exact same price as the game itself just to get some cosmetics for it. That is a crazy thing to ask of people. Then, of course, there's the final option here, which is getting the Ultimate Edition through Ubisoft Plus, which is their own cringe subscription service for $18 a month. Because every single fucking thing on the planet has a subscription service now behind it. I bet there's going to be a subscription service for Mr. Bean. Like Mr. Bean Extra On-Demand Turbo Arcade. Even though there's only 15 episodes of Mr. Bean that have ever aired and they're all freely accessible on YouTube right now. But I bet they'll probably come out with some kind of Mr. Bean subscription in the next few years. That's just the number one trend that every tech company follows now. And Ubisoft is, of course, no stranger to that. So they have Ubisoft Plus, which hopefully they have less than double digits of users signed up to that, because I don't know who in their right mind would sign up for Ubisoft Plus. But anyway, that's the other option of getting the Ultimate Edition. I hate the direction Ubisoft is trying to push AAA gaming. I hate this pricing scheme. I think it's terrible. It was bad when they did it with Star Wars Outlaws. It's bad that they're doing it with Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I'm really hoping that it flops extraordinarily hard so that way more AAA companies don't try and emulate it. Because I have no doubt there's a lot of companies paying close attention to what Ubisoft's doing here. And if it's successful, they'll probably employ similar tactics. And that would just be bad for everybody. So I wanted to vent about this a little bit. I think it super sucks. I hate where Ubisoft is trying to take the industry. So yeah, I kind of wanted to just rant about this a little bit and get it all out of my system. I'm still going to try Assassin's Creed Shadows because I still give every single game that comes out a try for the most part to see if maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised and proven wrong. So far, the safest bet I'll ever be able to make is that the newest Assassin's Creed game is going to be boring. That's been proven true time and time and time and time and time again for me personally, but maybe Shadows is the one to break that streak. And if it does, great, but it's still not going to change the way I feel about how Ubisoft is monetizing it. I think it is horrible for the industry overall. Even if the game comes out and it's great, I still can't stand what Ubisoft has done with their monetization of these games. I think it is fucking atrocious. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah. I briefly mentioned the situation with Unity a few days ago, just as a tiny little blurb, basically a cameo appearance in a Marvel movie. I just kind of went over like the very basics of everything going wrong with Unity. But things have only gotten worse since then, so I just want to make a whole video here going over the entire situation and kind of dancing on Unity's grave, because they did it to themselves. Now, of course, they're not actually dead yet, but they are doing everything in their power to put themselves in the dirt. They are bent on self-destruction and nothing will stop them. It's like a scene out of 24, with Jack Bauer interrogating a terrorist and they're doing everything they can to take the cyanide pill to end it all. That's Unity as a business right now. So a channel called Upper Echelon just released an incredible video going over all of the new information about this situation, so I'm going to show you some clips of that, as well as just give you the broader stuff as well, just in case you're unfamiliar with all of it. This is going to be an all-encompassing biblical smackdown of everything Unity related.
Unity Technologies, a video game software company responsible for making the Unity game engine, has recently adjusted their fee structure. On top of a flat subscription service, they will now charge game developers per install, with retroactive terms of service changes, and that monetization scheme will have a severe negative impact on a great deal of projects.
In a nutshell, that's where all of this disaster stems from. He has just given you the macaroni, so allow me to give you the cheese. Unity made a big announcement about a change to their monetization model where if you reach a certain level of success with their product, they will then start dipping their greedy, grubby little paws into your pockets and take a little piece for themselves out. So, if you're using Unity Personal and Unity Plus, you're eligible for this fee once you reach 200k in revenue over the last 12 months and have 200k lifetime installs, and that number increases to 1 million in 12 months and 1 million installs when you're using Pro or Enterprise. So basically, they will start taking money, and it's dictated how much at each level, per install of a game once it reaches this threshold. Now, there is no faith in this company left, like there's nothing but bad will, so no one really has any faith that they have any means of detecting fraudulent downloads. A lot of people were very quick to point out that you could absolutely fuck someone in the face by just constantly reinstalling these games on like virtual machines or pirated copies, but Unity's like, no, we've solved everything. Actually, piracy is extinct now. We'll know if that's happening. But no one believes them because it's very hard to take them at their word when they have no good faith left. So, there is potential for this to be exploited in a big way where you could cost companies or individuals tons and tons and tons of money just by gamifying this fee. And it's not like Unity really has an incentive to stop that because they're making the money off of that fee. That's money going into their piggy bank. So heavens to Betsy, sports fans, you tell me, why the fuck would they patch out this infinite money exploit when they're the ones that benefit from it? But anyway, this is the big bang that created the universe of problems for Unity here and started all of the hoopla with this entire catastrophe. The best way I've seen it described is, imagine if Adobe started to put up a big stink about YouTubers using their product. Like, imagine Adobe comes out and says, you know what, we've arbitrarily decided that YouTubers that reach a certain threshold of views are going to be subject to a fee because they use Adobe Premiere to edit. So, Mr. Beast, for example. Mr. Beast will now start paying X amount of dollars per view because he edited his content with Adobe. It should be pretty clear why that is an extremely scummy and ridiculous idea. And that's fundamentally what Unity's doing here. People paid for the tools. They made their own games with those tools. Adobe, now I'm getting lost in my own fucking genjutsu here, the fantasy I've crafted. Unity should not be entitled for a fee per install on the games that people make if they're successful. It's literally suffering from success.
We already know about John Riccitiello, however you say that, the CEO. He sold a bit of his stock right before this all happened. He was the former CEO at EA Games.
John Riccitiello, more like John Sissy-Tiello, because he's a little bitch. Man, what a humdinger. If Unity wasn't dead before this video, they're definitely dead after this one, because that was an absolute heater. So anyway, their CEO is John Riccitiello, however you say it, I also don't know. Upper Echelon is about to get into the meat of the new discoveries, but I want to continue laying the foundation for all of the prerequisite knowledge that you should have coming into the new stuff. So, their CEO is a very important component to this entire controversy. He is a former EA employee, former EA CEO, who was too greedy for EA. Let that sink in for a moment, marinate on those juices, let that percolate in your noodles for a moment. Someone was too greedy for EA, and it's this cartoon villain here. This goofball is the mayor of Doofustown. I don't know how this clown keeps landing prestigious positions. In 2011, during a stockholder meeting, he said, when you're 6 hours into playing Battlefield and you run out of ammo in your clip and we ask you for $1 to reload, you're really not that price sensitive at that point in time. So he's using this as a gold standard example of successful monetization, where you're deep into Battlefield, you're in the middle of doing something, and then bang, we flash a jump scare on screen that says you need to give us $1 if you want to reload right now. And he believes most players would relent and just give them the $1 because they are actively doing something and now have to pay in order to keep doing it. It's beyond evil. It is remarkably greedy. He also fell into some hot water last year where he called developers fucking idiots if they didn't focus on monetization. This dusty, crusty, abominable zombie only treats the games industry as a means to put the squeeze on consumers and hose them for every single dollar they have to their name. It's not surprising to see the direction Unity's going with this goofball at the helm. But what is surprising is the fact that John Riccitiello keeps landing powerful positions in the industry. He is not good at his job. His ideas are atrocious. He is a money repellent. EA couldn't even act on his advice because it was so over-the-top Looney Tunes level evil greed. He does not succeed as a leader. All he does is lead companies to fucking ruin, like reputational ruin, with what he's doing with Unity now. He just sinks the ship with terrible business ideas. I don't know how he even got the Unity CEO role. So now that's the basic lore rundown on the history of John, the money's gone, Riccitiello. Now, as Upper Echelon briefly mentioned there, this guy also sold a pretty substantial amount of Unity stock right before this announcement came out. Which, you know, hey, I'm not the feds here, I'm not the authorities, but to me, in my little caveman brain, that sounds a little bit like insider trading. There's no way this guy is dumb enough to have not realized the backlash that would ensue from this. And he happened to dump quite a bit of stock right before making the announcement. That's a little peculiar, don't you think? But anyway, maybe just complete coincidence, perhaps.
But who's this guy? Tomar Barziv. Credit where credit is due, tugging on this thread is the result of a post on r/Unity from a user named Zijit. I'll link to that down below. Tomar Barziv is on the board of directors at Unity, but he is also the CEO of a company called ironSource.
ironSource is a company that merged with Unity to the tune of $4.4 billion. ironSource is a business that fundamentally focuses on monetizing developers' apps. And this merger was actually pretty controversial because a lot of users had reported some shady things with the ironSource platform and alleged that there was malware, there was adware bundled with certain things, just a lot of claims that were pretty alarming. Eventually, ironSource coped by saying, like, hey, it was just some bad actors who, abused the platform. And so this merger already was pretty sour in terms of its reception due to all of these past experiences that users were alleging.
But it turns out that when you go down the list of Unity insiders who are selling stock in the company, this guy is by far the most aggressive. Over the past year alone, according to Fintel, it appears that Tomar Barziv has sold upwards of $20 million in Unity stock, which is interesting to say the very least.
20 million clams, huh? That is very interesting, I'd say. Now, of course, this isn't like the most unheard of thing ever with, insiders selling stock, right? But the volume that he's selling, especially in comparison to the others, the frequency, and just his position within the company all makes this a very interesting case of selling 20 million doubloons worth of your Unity stock here.
First, at the same time as this $4.4 billion deal, or merger, was taking place, a company called AppLovin made a competing offer to buy out Unity completely for $20 billion. But Unity rejected this deal, citing that the deal, quote, would not reasonably be expected to result in a superior proposal.
Upper Echelon goes on to say that he finds it odd that they rejected that, considering the $20 billion offer is pretty significantly above the market cap at the time. But he did say that with the AppLovin deal, Unity would have been dropped to 49%, so there is complications to it. But this is an important piece of the puzzle here with everything going on, because Upper Echelon expands a bit further into the merger with ironSource, which was significantly less than they would have got than if they went with AppLovin. So there is a bit of a head scratcher to it, but Upper Echelon is diving deep in here and picking out all the breadcrumbs and getting to the truth.
During the deal with ironSource, two investment companies, Sequoia Capital and Silver Lake, pledged to come on board with $1 billion invested in the deal itself. Two more people, one from each of those companies, joined Unity's board of directors: Egon Durbin and Rolaf Botha, these nuts. Starting with Egon Durbin, he is a founding principal and managing director at Silver Lake, which it now appears, I shit you not, has sold the entirety of their directly held remaining stock in Unity Technologies, disclosed as of yesterday.
Casually sliding in that D's nuts moment was spectacular, really appreciated. So, important takeaways here is after the ironSource merger with Unity, two new people get added to the board, and they're both some pretty shady individuals as well. One of them, Egon, actually dumps all of his held Unity stock, which was disclosed yesterday, apparently. And it's at this point Upper Echelon drags us kicking and screaming into the light. We're able to take a look at this septic tank for what it really is, full of shit. So these two new characters come on board, and Upper Echelon examined their connections. And Aegon, in particular, had a notable past where he was pretty tight with Tesla, especially during that whole boogeyman moment where Tesla might go private, that whole thing that floated around a few years ago. And overall, both of these two new members of the board at Unity both seem very enthusiastic about this modern tech trend to charge out the wazoo for API access. Twitter made a change to their pricing model for API access not too long ago. Reddit most recently made a change to their pricing model for API access, which was actually the catalyst for the Reddit blackout that many of you might remember. God rest the souls of all the accounts that went offline for 48 hours. Basically, the new tech trend is these massive corporations charging a lot of money for API access, and Upper Echelon draws this parallel with the way Unity's pricing model reflects the API pricing models for Twitter and Reddit. And given the connections of the two new members that joined the board, Botha and Durbin, it isn't far-fetched to assume that this is the direction Unity wants to go, to follow in line with those models, which is bad. That is bad for everybody in the communities. The API changes on Twitter and Reddit were wildly detrimental to a lot of different things, and the Unity changes are also extremely detrimental to a lot of different things. It is a bad thing, but it actually gets worse.
Here's a much better visualization of what's actually happening from a user named Sososki on Twitter. The yellow indicates the portion of developers who will now lose between 10 and 25% of their revenue with Unity's new terms of service. The orange, they stand to lose between 25 and 50% of their revenue. Red can lose between 50 and 100%, and that scary black line off to the left, not huge, but it is there. That's the area where these new terms will bankrupt your company because Unity decided to charge you more money per install than your app is even making.
There's no way Unity didn't do math. There's no way this Twitter user put more work into analyzing this than the company did making this decision. This is something that under no circumstances should have ever flown, period. Because there's no world where you as the company should bankrupt the people using your product because they're succeeding when using your product. It's nonsensical. Now, I realize I didn't answer this in the beginning, but there is a lot of confusion. They are changing the policy, but it doesn't mean that the companies that use Unity for their games are retroactively responsible to pay for the installs that people have already done prior to this new agreement. It's going forward. So yes, the rules change, but it doesn't enforce retroactively for payment. Though a lot of terms are changing, and there is a lot of scumminess there, of course, which has led to a pretty deep and interesting discussion around if Unity's even able to do this legally. And I'm not an expert, so of course take this with a grain of salt, but from what I've researched and from what I've read, it is legal to change the license the way they have and then still hold previous products to the same standards of the new license, even though when they made the game that license wasn't the same. It's legal to do that. It's just a morally fucked up thing to do and then enforce it that way retroactively. So there is a lot of nuance to this, and then the whole thing is just a messy fucking disaster. Truly, top to bottom. But I don't think it's illegal per se. But who knows? Maybe it is. I've seen discussions about a potential class action lawsuit from some developers, so I guess we'll see. But the big point here with this graph is that under this new monetization policy, developers can straight up go bankrupt just because their game is succeeding, because this fee is taking more money from the developers than the game they made is making them. So they're literally losing money with more installs. It's tragic. Like, it's unbelievable. And it's not like Unity wouldn't know that. Unity has this data. Again, there is no way a Twitter user did more research and more analysis than the company themselves. Unity has to know this. They just don't care. They don't give a fuck about it.
Focusing on the casual mobile market, we see this right here. Unity is offering a runtime fee waiver if you switch to level play, as it tries to kill AppLovin. Level play is a service from ironSource. That decision emulates a pattern that began with Twitter, was mirrored by Reddit, and is now making its way through the broader markets. The decision itself appears to be aimed at killing a competing service after Unity actually rejected a buyout offer from that service's owner in favor of a merger with ironSource, who stands to gain the most from this entire controversy.
I went a little out of order here, but I wanted to save this point for last. So apparently Unity is offering a fee waiver if you switch to the ironSource service, the level play service. So the conclusion here, the overall conclusion that Upper Echelon draws from all of this information presented, is that Unity is going down the modern tech trend model of the API charges that Twitter and Reddit use and implementing something very similar when it comes to game development in their products. And it seems like a lot of this is aimed at killing a competitor that actually offered to buy them out, AppLovin. AppLovin is a service that does directly compete with what ironSource is offering here, level play. So it does seem like all of this is trying to follow that trend and also trying to destroy that competitor. Now, I highly encourage all of you to go finish Upper Echelon's video because he gets into a lot more of the nitty-gritty here, as well as how developers are combating this currently and what they can do going forward in order to fight back against this kind of unhinged greed, but there are still so many pieces left on the chessboard that Upper Echelon does go through. So I'm going to put a link to his video in the description of this one. I highly encourage you to go check out the rest of it if you want to see even more about it, as well as how deep the rabbit hole goes, because again, there's still a lot more to this, and Upper Echelon does a great job at shedding light on all of it. So yeah, I think it should be pretty clear why so many gamers and pretty much everyone is upset about these Unity changes. This tech trend is not something that people should be celebrating, not that anybody is, but it really is a horrible trend with all of the API pricing changes and now Unity trying to integrate that model into gaming. All of this is a much worse thing for consumers, the average person, in this case, gamers and game developers. It is a bad scenario all around. So this situation is one that I really don't think Unity should ever recover from. The company deserves to fail for this, 100%. This is an impressive level of delusional greed that should absolutely sink this company. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of go over all of this. That's really about it. So yeah. Escape from Tarkov? More like escape from the video games industry, because their new greedy decision is having them run out of town with people chasing them down with pitchforks and leaving their game in droves. Escape from Tarkov probably needs no introduction. It's a massively popular game, and they just pulled a huge blunder that is catastrophic for their company. They are releasing a new PvE game mode at a $250 price point. That is so many doubloons it makes me want to spit. For $250, I expect to download this new mode and then actually have the CEO of Battlestate Games come over and rim me out. That is stupid to be charging for DLC. But even aside from that delusional price point, it commits every unforgivable atrocity that could ever befall a video game. It breaks all of the rules, commits every sin that not even the Lord can forgive. It is pay to win out the wazoo, and this is something they actually doubled down on today, which I'll cover soon. This is a story that's been developing over the last 24 plus hours, and it just keeps getting worse. It's like they're trying to find every possible electrical outlet to stick a fork in until it finally ruins the company. Like, they are so focused on burying their fist as far up their own ass as possible. So it's pay to win in the very literal sense of being pay to win, but the absolute worst part is that it broke a promise to their community who had bought into a previous edition they offered. It was misleading their entire community. So they offered something called the Edge of Darkness edition for $100 in the past. And one of the perks of buying that $100 Edge of Darkness edition is that you would have access to all subsequent DLC in the future for free. So $100 is a lot of money for a DLC, but it was kind of like an investment long-term into the game that they loved. So they paid that $100 under the impression that in the future, if more DLC content was coming, they'd have access to it without needing to pay more. But now, fast forward to the Unheard edition for $250, they are not allowing the Edge of Darkness buyers access to that DLC for free. They would still need to buy that. Now, initially, that was going to be it. You'd have to pay the extra $150, but with all of the backlash that understandably came from this, they decided to dip their toes into a compromise where they would offer the EOD buyers 6 months of access to the Unheard edition, so they get a fucking free trial, like a drug dealer giving them their first hit for free. It's laughably pathetic. I don't even think Mr. Krabs would pull some shit like this, because even he would recognize that this would ruin his business. This is incomprehensible greed. I learned about all of this last night on stream, so I'm going to play you all of those clips to get you caught up to speed on the lore and exactly what's been going on here and how bad it all is. And then I'm going to come in to give you the latest updates with what's been happening today, only a couple of hours ago, because it continues to get worse and worse for Escape from Tarkov somehow. Earlier today, the Unheard edition of Escape from Tarkov was announced as part of the latest patch, promising a brand new player versus environment mode and other bonuses. Yippee! Now that the edition has launched, fans are not happy with the bonus it gives and the massive $250 price tag. That is a big chunk of change that even has EA and Ubisoft doing this right now. So just this one DLC was $250? The first issue that fans have is that the player versus environment mode for Tarkov is exclusive to those who buy the new edition. This is despite the fact that anyone who purchased the old Edge of Darkness edition was promised all future DLC content as part of the season pass, which you would think would include this new mode. So this is false advertising? Is that what they're coming after Tarkov for? Because they're saying that you get all future DLC with this, and now they're not giving you all future DLC? A lot of fans who have the Edge of Darkness edition are rightfully very annoyed they now have to upgrade from EOD, which costs $100, in order to play it. However, some posts on the official Discord have tried to explain why BSG thinks this is not DLC. Please don't tell me they're trying to fight their battle. Well, actually, they push up their glasses. It's not DLC by the technical terminology. That's not the correct nomenclature. This is a new single-player experience, thus, they did not circumvent any laws. Not only that, there's a clip from Landmark channel of them changing the wording on their website live to hide what they did. I'll check that out. It's from Landmark. It ain't DLC, it's unique feature of the new edition added, said Discord user Applezor, who is the lead community manager at Battlestate Games for Escape from Tarkov. DLC means additional downloadable content. PvE is a feature and a game mode. Just because you all want it to become a DLC, it wouldn't mean it is one. It's featured game mode for the new edition of the game. Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town? What? What kind of weak-ass argument is that? Huh? That's a lot worse than I thought that was going to be. The other major issues that fans have been complaining about is the big in-game bonuses players with the new edition will get. While other editions of the game give some bonuses, so far none have been major factors when on the map and fighting with other players. The closest is extra loot that they get at the start of a wipe. However, this new edition includes more space to store loot when on the map, improved skills at the start of a wipe, and a bonus where AI scavs will not shoot at them if they have over 6 reputation levels with fence. So that's what the pay-to-win article was about then, which is an entirely separate issue. These, along with some other bonuses, have led to the edition being labeled pay-to-win, with players who buy it expected to have a big advantage over those who do not. The reaction to the new edition has been so negative that all but 3 channels in the official Escape from Tarkov Discord have been silenced, with users not able to post in them. Moderators on the game's subreddit are also waiving the rule that prevents multiple posts about the same topic, saying they are just as livid about this situation as you. You know things are reaching like deep DEFCON levels if even the subreddit mods are like, nope, we're mad about this as well. That's when you know you have truly fucked up. Battlestate Games did not respond to my request for comment. Battlestate Games is yet to officially comment on the backlash, with pressure mounting from fans and some even looking into legal action. You would expect them to do it so sooner rather than later. The move also comes at a very bad time given that Gray Zone Warfare, a game many see as a competitor to Tarkov, has just wrapped up its first public streamer test, which has gone incredibly well with fans. With public sentiment towards Tarkov very low, many fans are hoping they can get their hands on Gray Zone Warfare sooner rather than later. Here's an update at 8:15. The official Escape from Tarkov account has posted a statement that seems to suggest Battlestate Game has no plans to make the new mode available to anyone who does not buy the new edition. Hey guys, listen, we heard the outrage. Fuck you. PvE mode is a unique feature which is available only for owners of the Unheard Edition. We will keep you updated on new features exclusive for EOD owners. And then they even got community noted. New game modes are generally accepted as DLC if put behind a paywall. Battlestate sold EOD with the promise that they would receive free access to all subsequent DLCs. So they're even getting their ham steamed by fucking Twitter community notes. Not only that, there's a radio you can call in friends mid-raid to help you as a PMC, which has never been a feature. It sounds very strong. You're still gonna buy it, right? Brother, I don't play Tarkov. And you would never catch me spending $250 for a fucking DLC. I don't even buy DLC when it's like $5. You think I'm gonna drop 250 clams on this? Who do you think you are? I am. Or I'm not. I would not do that. That's craziness. Tarkov devs are also shitting on the competitor game on Twitter. That just means that they're kind of desperate. I imagine this is what you're talking about from his stream. They just changed what you get retroactively to avoid the folks calling them out. I've talked with ANPC, National Agency for Customer Protection again. The only way we can solve this is if we make formal complaints to BSG about this. If they are left unresolved for 30 days, we can proceed with the lawsuit, no problem. If they answer negatively, we can proceed. I suggest you all to do formal complaints as BSG. Make them have 1,000 lawsuits at once. This is available for Europe, the 30 days thing. Man, that severely underpaid social media guy for BSG is gonna have the worst 30 days of his life. Meanwhile, all the big wigs are just going to be counting their money from the whales that won't be able to contain themselves, scratching at the neck and spending the 250. I've been playing Tarkov for like 8 years. This hurts, man. Yeah, I don't even play Tarkov, and this is pretty painful just to read. I don't know how they thought this would go over well. That's something that I just can't wrap my head around. Like, it's 2024. These companies hire tech-savvy people. They have social media experts. They have these fucking think tanks and focus groups, and yet somehow these kind of decisions still go through. There really must just be this epidemic of people that spend money no matter what and say nothing. Like, this has to somehow be profitable for them, because it happens too often. The big problem is them changing the promise. Oh, and that's not even I mean, that is a big problem, but to me the biggest problem is just like this outrageous price point that they thought was gonna work. Even if there was no broken promises, I still feel like most people would see $250 for some fucking DLC and scoff. Look at Star Wars Outlaws, for example. Granted, you get a lot more out of this for $250 than you do out of Star Wars Outlaws for $130, but even still, those prices are fucking insano style. And you want to know what else is laughable and pathetic? Their social media guy who's fighting for his life right now on Twitter. So, Escape from Tarkov is by far the biggest in the genre. However, there are a couple of competitors. And this lone warrior with access to BSG's Twitter, the company behind Escape from Tarkov, is doing his best to try and play hardball, fight fire with fire. But he didn't realize he was bringing piss to a poop fight and ended up covered in filth. He desperately tried to plant his feet here and make a public slapping display. There was another game that was taking advantage of all of the hoopla here, recognizing that Tarkov fumbled and that a lot of players were leaving, so they made an announcement saying like, hey, you guys are welcome in our game. And the BSG social media champion tried this little maneuver. Have a nice 20-minute adventure in the blatant plagiarist game, in and out. And then even got slapped by Twitter, community noted, saying, hey, it's not plagiarism. They need to prove that assets were taken from EFT. So even Twitter's making fun of BSG. Now let's start with the newest developments here. The biggest one by far is a supposed unreleased interview with BSG. I'm not going to get too specific about it because I don't know if I'm even allowed to really talk about it. I'm pretty sure I can't show it because, again, it is unreleased. But basically the interview went as bad as you could have possibly imagined. The interview opens with him saying that all of this is not a mistake. He's not forcing anyone to buy their game. So, suck it up, basically. And then another question that was asked point blank was, are you contemplating any solutions since this has been received so poorly? And he gave a single word response, no. So it doesn't seem like there's any signs of them changing their minds with this direction here. The whole interview was him just basically throwing everything into the shitter and saying, deal with it. 250, fork it over, is what it is. We're not changing this. And then, this one blew my mind. They did make a slight update to all of this, where instead of addressing the price problem or the lying about what EOD owners will get in the future or the shady, scummy attempt at hiding things on their website, instead of addressing any of the complaints, they instead doubled down on pay-to-win features. In response to all of this, everything that's been going on, they basically come out and say, like, hey guys, look, we've heard you. We see what's going on here. We're listening. So we're giving you more pay-to-win features. Mother of pearl, just look at this list. One of these is high-priority matchmaking. They're getting a priority queue for 6 months. It's not even the lifetime. Keep in mind, they're not giving you lifetime access to the Unheard Edition pay-to-win shit. It's a 6-month trial to try and get you hooked and hopefully get the whales to buy into the 250 down the line. Like, this is... Their solution to all of this shows just how out of touch and greedy they are. This is greed on a scale I don't think I've ever seen in the games industry before. This is making EA sweat. EA right now is taking notes. They're like, whoa, how are they doing this? Like, they're right now, they're trailblazing. Like, I feel terrible for EFT players. I never really got super deep into Tarkov. I've tried it a few times, but I'm just not big into the extraction genre, to be honest. But man, this must suck as a big fan of the game. This is so unacceptable. The best case scenario here is another game comes and does what EFT does better and isn't led by the greediest, stupidest fucking people in the industry. That's the best case scenario here, but who knows how long something like that will take. The dumb assholes at Battlestate Games have really done something shocking here. In an industry that is overcome with greed out the wazoo, somehow Battlestate Games just found a new low. That's impressive. Actually impressive. Anyway, though, wishing the best for the EFT community during this time, because Jesus, that shit is awful. Yeah, so I just want to talk about this a little bit. That's it. See ya. There's been a ferocious debate that's raged on in the gaming community for a long time about trying to identify who is the stupidest individual in the entire industry, and I think most people have kind of agreed that it has to be John Riccitiello. He was the former Unity CEO who nearly led that company to the grave, nearly sinking a massive business through some of the worst business acumen I've seen since Mr. Krabs tried to charge for breathing. Also, speaking of charging for breathing, John Riccitiello really took some notes out of that playbook because he's also the former EA head who pitched the idea of potentially charging per reload. So this ghoul's name lives in infamy. He's like the gaming industry's Morbius. He just keeps coming up with flops and creatively failing. However, with the catastrophic blunder from Escape from Tarkov, a new name has entered the conversation for stupidest man in the video games industry, Nikita of Battlestate Games. So I covered this a couple days ago. Pretty much everyone has because it's been a huge deal, even outside of the Escape from Tarkov community. It's just an example of the worst parts of gaming with unbelievable, unchecked greed, misleading their community, fundamentally scamming their players, and a lot of shady shit that's also been going on at BSG here. And all of it over the last few days has served to kind of act like Chaozu on Nappa, just self-destructing this entire fucking company. So there's been two major updates that I just want to cover because it seems like Nikita has recognized the disaster that has unfolded here, and he is finally biting his pride, swallowing his ego, and trying to put out the fire that he has caused. So he's made some brief statements on it where he really wanted to stick to his guns and puff out his chest, fucking lat spreading here and refusing to move like a strong oak tree. No matter how much, controversy comes, hell or high water, he's not budging. That was like the hardball he tried to play initially. Then he was singing a little bit of a different tune when he dropped this update yesterday. He said, "Hello again. Let me clarify the situation in a little more detail regarding owners of the EOD version and access to the cooperative mode and also other issues. First of all, PvE game mode, this is not DLC. DLC, in my understanding, is the major additions to the game, including variations, functionality, and content that are released after the official release of the game as a themed DLC pack. Scav Life DLC, for example, which will add a lot of new mechanics and content for Scav gameplay and leveling." This is horseradish. This is like trying to argue that a poop is not a shit. It makes no sense whatsoever. You're just getting into these outrageous, mental gymnastics to try and explain why it's not DLC, even though by every possible definition, it is. And the reason this is so important, in case you're not caught up with the lore, is owners of the EOD edition were promised all future DLC for free. They paid a lot of money for EOD, and were promised future DLC will be free. However, with the Unheard edition, it was not going to be free. They were still charging $250, thus the EOD owners would still have to pay the extra money to upgrade to that, which goes against what was advertised for the EOD edition, which you can't do. That's misleading advertisement. You're fucking lying. You're fundamentally scamming with that. So he's trying very hard to come out of this squeaky clean with an explanation that no, it's not DLC. The Unheard edition, this is super different, not DLC. Thus, we don't have to play by our own rules that we set here. It's dumb. It's fucking stupid. Nikita does some more whippets here and continues saying, "Secondly, the specific functionality of the PvE mode is necessarily located entirely on a separate network infrastructure because, essentially, you play on our servers only in closed mode. At this stage, it's not possible to launch all players who are EOD holders. We don't have the required resources." He goes on to basically say they recognized everyone was super unhappy with this shit and they were tired of getting spit on for it, so they're going to be giving the PvE mode to all EOD version owners for free at the release of the game, when the server infrastructure will be improved to required capacity, also offering a 50% discount when upgrading to the Unheard version from EOD. Then they're also giving a Left Behind edition key to everyone who's already upgraded to the Unheard edition at the old price. And then goes on to say, more so that any player of any version of EFT can have the opportunity to test the PvE mode. We want to add the ability to purchase a separate early access to this mode. For EOD owners, there will be a 70% discount on the purchase of early access to PvE. It would be interesting to hear your thoughts on this idea. Next, regarding special items for the unheard version, we plan to make restrictive or balancing changes for these items. This is it for now. Please share your thoughts. Thank you. Hey, Nikita, I'm sharing my thoughts. This isn't good enough. Where's like the, hey, I'm sorry for being a greedy asshole? Where's that in this whole statement? Where's the, hey guys, look, I'm kind of a stupid idiot, you know? I've been huffing that moron juice for a little too long and I saw too many dollar bills on the table, so I made a dumb decision. Where's like the level of accountability for this? It's a terrible, 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 terrible decision that you see had a horrible effect on your game and it made you panic. He's been desperately trying to lessen the blowback here while also not apologizing for anything, like not admitting that it was a mistake, but he's still not doing nearly enough at all. Like, I'm sharing my thoughts here, Nikita. I think you're a goober. I think you're a stupid goober. There's still pay-to-win, huge game-changing features being offered here. It is still pay-to-win. Like, he states that they're going to do some more balancing around it. It's vague, but, like, how about you just remove them? Just get rid of them. Like, people are fine with cosmetics. Like, take a temperature of your community. It seems like 99% would prefer if they were just cosmetics that you get here as opposed to pay-to-win items. Also, I don't even know why I'm like harping on this one because he did make another update, but I'm just still so shocked at this one that he thought this would be enough. It's not. And most sensible people called him out on it, saying that, nah, this just isn't going to fucking cut it. This isn't going to save Tarkov from what you've done here. So he came back 9 hours ago with this. Greetings. I love the way he starts this, just making it sound like he's super enthusiastic. Like, he's got that holly jolly spirit running through his veins right now. He can't wait. He's got a big old smile on his face, even though I know that's not the case. That greetings can't hide the tears behind the keyboard that he's typing from. Let me continue my feedback on the current situation. First of all, I would like to say that I am very sorry that fans in the game community in general are experiencing these feelings. Unfortunately, I somehow did not foresee the fact of such a reaction, and now I have drawn conclusions for my future decisions. Unironically dropping a, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's impressive. That's such a non-apology off rip. This dude just can't. He cannot admit that he made a huge fuck up here. He can't admit that the core idea of charging 250 clams for a DLC and then absolutely butt-fucking everyone who grabbed your EOD edition is bad. The only thing he's taking accountability for is not foreseeing the community's reactions, which blows my mind because I don't know how you wouldn't see that coming unless your eyes are just closed. I don't know. He just puts like $100 bills over his eyes and closes himself off to the world. I don't know how you wouldn't expect that. But the only thing he's apologizing for is that people were upset at the situation. He's basically just like, hey, I didn't think you guys would be upset about being scammed. That's a head scratcher, man. That's so weird. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't think you guys were so fucking sensitive about being charged $250 and being lied to for this scam. Sorry how you feel that way, I guess. It's just a classic non-apology. Now I'll briefly summarize the main points. 1. About PvE access, we decided to just open it for EOD owners for free, but we will do it in waves. And as I said before, we don't have the server capacity right now. We will start this process as soon as possible. So he's finally caving and just saying, you know what? Alright, all EOD owners, we're doing it, and we're doing it in waves. We'll do it live. No mention on the frequency of those waves. I saw the comment section was still eating him alive, saying, I bet those waves are every 6 months, referencing the initial compromise where he's like, okay, we'll give you a free trial of 6 months. So it could still be that, I suppose. He's just changing the wording around it. 2. We also decided that we will add mod support for PvE mode after the release of the game, which is pretty fucking big from what I understand here. 3. About the Unheard Edition. We will not remove it. We want to keep the option for those who want to support the game more, but we will balance items, perks in this edition, as well as we will provide more rewards for those who upgraded with the old price. If that's more pay-to-win items, I'm actually going to squeal. We're going to provide more rewards for those who upgraded. Here's some more pay-to-win. That would actually have me squealing. But he's just referencing that the community knows this is all pay-to-win, so they're going to be balancing it. The best way of balancing that, Nikita, is to take that shit out. People don't want that in their games. No one wants to pay for an advantage or play a game where people can pay for an advantage over those who don't. It sucks. It's terrible for the health of your game. So just fucking remove it and replace those bonuses with cool cosmetics or something like that. Something that doesn't drastically change the game or even really change it in any way would be optimal. Just purely cosmetic shit would be preferable. 4. New EOD perks will be balanced too. We will remove prioritized matching option to keep everyone in the same spot, and we will add more unique stuff to highlight the EOD version in the game in general. We will provide the final list of the new EOD perks ASAP. This one's huge because they're getting rid of one of the most alarming features they were touting, which was prioritized matchmaking through paying 250 fucking doubloons. So they're like, okay, we'll just get rid of that. That's good. That is just good, no matter how you look at that. Thankfully, they're getting rid of it. It's really concerning that they were even toying around. Well, not even toying around. It's really concerning that they were actually going to go through with the idea of introducing a prioritized matchmaking feature to this game. That is a huge red flag. But it's going bye-bye now, so the community is just going to have to trust that in the future, Nikita won't try and pull some shit like that again. I don't know how you'd ever have trust in this guy at the helm of this company going forward, but that's not for me to decide. That's going to be for individual players. And 5, we continue to work on patches, new content events, and the game release itself no matter what. Thank you for your time, love, and hate, and thank you for your increased attention to the current situation, Nick. Hey, no problem at all, Nick. I'm always happy to insult greedy little assholes like you. So, the community's response to this one has been much more positive because they are directly addressing some of the bigger problems and introducing their solutions to it. Now, they are not budging on the $250 price, which I am still upset about, even as someone who was never going to buy it. I hate the precedent that sets. If a lot of people buy $250 DLC, obviously other games are going to be taking note of that and seeing how far they can push these prices and also how closely they can tap dance on this line. Because Nikita right now is unironically a pioneer. He is stepping on every possible landmine of greed, so that way every other video game company can take notes of what communities will and will not accept. So he's doing a lot of guinea pigging for the entire industry right now, and it makes me a little concerned going forward. Another thing that's absent from this update is addressing the fact that they lied. Like, point blank, lied. And they also tried to sneakily change shit on their website to hide that fact. No mention of that at all, and that's super scummy. So I do think that's something that they really need to continue to be grilled on. And thankfully they still are. I did mention that it has been more positively received, but it's not by everybody, of course. There are too many people that feel betrayed by this company, and they don't want to continue to support this. If they can't trust the developer down the line to not try and fuck their wallet again, why are they going to continue to invest time into this game and money? It wouldn't make sense. So a lot of people are leaving for sure, and a lot of people are still calling out these facts that not everything is, sunshine and unicorns here. Like, it's not really a full win or anything like that. It's just better in a bad situation that was made out of it. In the comment section, he did reply to a really important question where a user said, "You have still not addressed the fact you are planning to release DLC for the game that was not going to be delivered to EOD owners. Please confirm that EOD owners will receive all content for the game in the future as promised when we purchase the product." And he responded saying, "Yes, EOD owners will receive all of the DLCs." So I don't know if this is him slyly finally falling on his own sword here and admitting that the Unheard Edition is DLC. It is DLC. No matter how much he's tried to argue the opposite, I think this is finally him just eating shit on it and saying that yes, it is DLC, thus we will make good on our promise that EOD owners will get it for free. However, a comment that replied under his made a really good point, that this is only applicable until they try and make an argument again in the future about how their newest DLC is actually not DLC. So I agree with that user that there is a good chance that fast forward a year, 2 years, however long from now, when Tarkov's got another major version coming out here, a new major content delivery, he might try something similar about, this one's really not DLC, so EOD owners will not be receiving this one for free. You will need to pay for the upgrade, all that hoopla again. Go through this entire song and dance once more. I do think it's possible, but I have no idea. Maybe Nikita put his hand on the stove, realized it's hot, and took it off and won't put it back on. there's no telling. This was a stupid, entirely avoidable situation that BSG found themselves in here. Their greed nearly ruined their entire game, and it still might have. There's probably plenty of people who have totally lost trust in Tarkov and won't stick around. I think there's a good chunk of players that are falling into that camp, and I think that's great. But there's still plenty of people that are going to play and support this game because they love the game. They might not love Nikita and they might not love the company behind it, but the game really hits for them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it does suck that no matter what Nikita and BSG did here, they are still going to be making tons and tons and tons of money from this. Like, they went through, a handful of days of being, made fun of and clowned on, but they're still going to end up making an absolute fucking ton of cash from charging $250 for this DLC. But yeah, anyway, that's where the whole Tarkov situation is at here. I do think Nikita should be in the conversation for stupidest person in the gaming industry right now. Tarkov is a massively popular game that he almost ruined. Like, straight up buried from this greed. So I think that is a very impressive feat that you don't see often. Games of this size don't usually collapse unless a competitor comes out and beats it, which right now isn't happening with Tarkov. It still has an absolute stranglehold on this genre. So it is pretty impressive just how bad of a decision this was, and how reluctant Nikita was to change it, or do anything at all to make the situation any better for themselves. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah. Diablo is one of the most beloved video game franchises of all time, and now Diablo Immortal is here, the newest entry into the franchise, and it's become clear that the Diablo that people loved is dead and buried, and its corpse is being paraded around like some kind of Weekend at Bernie's style charade. And not because the game is bad. In fact, most people agree the game itself is very fun and really well made. The problem is how pay to win it is. The microtransactions in this game are a whole new breed of scummy. Not even Ed, Edd n Eddy would have come up with a scam like this. I swear to God, the microtransaction model must have been designed by Mr. Krabs. I'm honestly shocked that it's not charging you for using your own Wi-Fi to play the game. Every single piece of this game has an accompanying microtransaction with it to speed up progress, to give you loot, give you buffs, whatever, gems, anything you can imagine. There's a microtransaction for it in the game. And it's packing meat. Some of them are expensive, and there's so many of them, and it incentivizes you heavily to engage in dropping at least a little bit of money sometimes. It's like a drug dealer who's just giving you free samples to get you hooked, like, hey, first one's free. In Diablo Immortal, it's the first one's cheap, the first one's like 80 cents or $1, and you get an 800% buff, why wouldn't you just give $1 to help improve the flow of the game, the progress, it's just $1, right? That's no big deal. And then as you continue to progress, it gets more and more expensive, and eventually it's just a ton of money outright, all the way to the tune of about $100,000 to fully max out a character, one character, with all of the max gems and everything. 100,000 real-world doubloons, 100,000 of your hard-earned clams for a single character in Diablo Immortal. Fucking wild. Now, of course, these are estimates from the players right now. The game's still early. No one's whaled 100 grand to my knowledge, but this is everything they've calculated through data mining, as well as just all of the stats and numbers that have been crunched. So I trust the community to be accurate with it, since they've gone like turbo detective mode on it to really digest how pay to win the game is. And everything that they've found and everything that I've read about, it's wild. I've never seen anything like this. It's just blatant trash. It is just absolute blatant greed, no mask, just coming full throttle. We want your money, and we want all of your money, the full amount in your wallet, into our game. It makes FIFA loot boxes look good. So let's go over it a little bit and dive in a bit deeper. Probably know the answer to this, but would you play Diablo Immortal? No. I was reading about it and I watched Ziz's video on it yesterday. It is crazy how greedy this game is. Like, even more so than most pay-to-win games on mobile. So apparently this claim is accurate. To fully max everything on a single character, it'll cost around 100 grand. Of real money. It's wild. And another crazy thing, So there's so many levels to their pay to win scheme, but if you engage in pay to win, you have to log in every day to keep some of the items. So let's say you whale out, you get a little hog wild with mommy's credit card and you put in quite a bit of money and you get the shit you want. You'll have to log in daily. And if you miss a day, you lose it. You can just lose the items that you paid to win with because you didn't log in for a day or 2 days, however long it is. I don't remember. I think it varies based on the item and the pay to win level. Oh, it's beyond greedy. It is shocking. And I will say, you guys know I'm not a big ARPG guy, but Diablo Immortal actually looks like a fun ARPG. If it wasn't this blatantly scummy, I think it probably would have been a good, well, and it probably still is if you don't pay for it, a good game. Now, Diablo Immortal's had a really rocky history. The second it was announced, it was immediately infamous. People hated it before it ever even came out because Blizzard announced it at BlizzCon in a really shitty, douchey way. So they threw out Diablo Immortal, it's going to be mobile, and then people weren't super excited, and they go, what, you guys don't have phones? Well, what kind of response is that? People were just expecting like a Diablo 4 or something, and they're getting a mobile game, so they're rightfully, not as hype as you would expect. And meanwhile, they're getting upset and offended about it. Like, come on, dipshits, you have mobile devices. Everyone's going to be playing Diablo Immortal on their phones. Every phone's going to come pre-installed with Diablo Immortal. What the fuck is wrong with you losers? Fucking nerds. And then, of course, it led to the viral clip where one of the BlizzCon viewers came up to ask a question to the employees during a Q&A and said, is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke with the Diablo Immortal announcement? So from the very get-go, people weren't excited about this game. And I honestly believe the announcement of Diablo Immortal was marking the decline of Blizzard as a company as a whole. Blizzard was worshipped for pretty much the entire history of his existence. People have worshipped, kissed the ground Blizzard has walked on until Diablo Immortal. That was the first time I can think of where Blizzard fans finally started to criticize them a bit and be upset about something. For the first time in Reddit history, a post that wasn't sucking Blizzard's cock was getting updates, calling out Blizzard behavior like with how they handled Diablo Immortal. And then from there, it's only been just a downward spiral for the company, with all of the workplace sexual assaults, as well as one of the employees committing suicide because of a bunch of terrible workplace things. Awful shit coming to light with the company. Tons and tons of layoffs. And then even on the game side of things, horrible business decisions with their games like the Warcraft Reforged. Everything has just been not in Blizzard's favor. People haven't been happy with Blizzard. The whole free Hong Kong thing. Just tons and tons and tons of things that have happened all post Diablo Immortal. And I really think it all started with Diablo Immortal. So this game was really cursed from the get-go for them. And now that it's out, it's even worse than people expected when it comes to microtransactions. I think everyone is really impressed with the game overall. Apparently, from everything I've watched and everyone I've listened to, all the streams I've watched, everyone agrees the game is good. Like, they've made a really good game, especially for mobile. And I agree, I'm not an ARPG guy, but I also think it looks fun. But it is completely overshadowed by how greedy it is. Do you think in-game purchases ruin good games? It depends. I'm of the stance that if it's a purely single-player experience, it's only PvE, pay-to-win elements don't ruin the game. If someone's going to whale out to have fun in a single-player game, that's their right. But once that enters into like a multiplayer experience, then I think it's a problem. Yeah, I also think paid cosmetics are fine, obviously. I don't think anyone has a problem with cosmetics. It's game-changing items, which is why it's pay to win. If you pay money for an item that changes your gameplay, it's pay to win, by its definition. But I'm fine with that when it's a single-player only experience, PvE only experience. I don't really care, because it's just an individual playing the game how they want to play, and they should have the complete freedom to go crazy with it. Fucking dumping money out the ass onto the game if they choose. It's just when it's a multiplayer game and it gives you an advantage that it's a problem. The option to pay. And they blatantly say 800% improvement when you pay for it. So when you get flashed, jump scared with their microtransactions, it'll straight up say buying this for $1, $2, whatever it is an 800% buff. Fucking wild. And yeah, The value here is nuts. You have to buy it. Your life is incomplete without it. This is why your parents divorced, because you didn't buy our microtransactions.
With the worst, because that's probably what a lot of people are here for. This is...
Where is it?
Borderlands.
Oh, yeah, there. Look, it tells you plus 800%. Plus 570%. And it's only $1. How can you play the game without that? So it's so predatory. It's like, well, it's only $1. I can justify that for an 800% boost. I'm gonna be going fucking Ultra Instinct in this bitch now. The grind is gonna be so much better. It's gonna be so much more fun. The next thing you know, you got limp dick in your hand and you're down $2,000 because you couldn't help yourself from all the microtransactions here. Because they scale. Starts at $1, but the more you engage in the micros, the more you're gonna be spending, and the more expensive the packs become. Are you sure that doesn't mean the value is 800% over the cost? I don't know. I'm not... I haven't played the game. All I'm saying is, I look at this as a player and I see plus 800%, regardless of how they mean it. I'm taking that as, wow, I'm getting a lot if I spend $1 here. 800% sounds scummy. Does it finish the quest without you doing anything? I don't know all the levels to it. It is microed out the fucking wazoo. Every component of this game has some micro to accompany it, whether it's to speed up progression, speed up loot, you name it. There's so many micros. But I don't know if there's like auto quest completer or something. I'm sure there is. There's probably like a we'll play the game for you. Have I paid for any mobile games yet? Yes. So I've said this before. The most money I've ever spent on a game is a mobile game. It's Duel Links. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. I'm not sure how much I spent in Duel Links. It would probably be north of like $3,000 though, over the course of like a year. And I've never spent money on another video game in my life, except for Master Duel when it came to Steam. So it's card games, really. Card games get to me. You know, you have to build decks, man. And I like to be competitive in my Yu-Gi-Oh! The only only three games I've ever spent money on: Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and Warframe. I went a little hog wild in Warframe too, but not nearly to the level I did in Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, Pokemon Unite, but that's more of a meme. Like, if I wasn't actively streaming Pokemon Unite, I wouldn't have paid to win for the first 2 days just for fun. Just to stomp kids and send them to bed crying. You need to spend money to make a clan. I saw that post. So Diablo Immortal, like, obviously, you know, you're going to form your groups and everything. A lot of them are requiring that you are a pay-to-win player. So I saw the post where one of the recruiters or whatever, the recruitment board or whatever, specifies that you need to have the battle pass, which you pay for. What else was it? It was like 2 other pay-to-win components. And I can't remember what they were, but yeah, you are like literally required for these groups, like if you want to get into them, to pay. It doesn't look like they're letting in free-to-play players. Fun fact, Diablo Immortal is made by the same developers as Cyber Hunter. I just don't believe you. They're co-developers. Cyber Hunter is still one of my favorite multiplayer experiences ever. It's on Steam, but there's cross-play with phones, I believe. So you will play against actual kids taking a shit at school and trying to get in a Cyber Hunter game, and you just absolutely slap them. It feels amazing. It's like actually living out a god fantasy. I had so much fun with this game. I feel like I've only scratched the surface on how awful the microtransactions are in this game, because I'm not a player of the game. So I'm only seeing this as an outsider who's reading the articles and watching the videos. I would highly recommend you check out some of the video essays on it, going through just how pay-to-win it is and how bad it is. Though I have also seen counterclaims that you can still participate as free-to-play and do, you know, pretty much everything a pay-to-win player can do. You'll just do it slower. And then I've also seen some data on how long it would take to do some of the things pay-to-win players do as free-to-play, and it looks like it'd take years. So if you're free-to-play and free-to-play only, it seems like some things that you have access to will still take you years to complete, whereas if you're pay-to-win, it'll take you minutes to do. So there's just a huge discrepancy between what you get when you're paying versus how you can achieve it as free to play, because they're trying very hard to incentivize people as much as possible to spend money in the game. And it's really aggressive from everything I've read. So I highly encourage you, if you're interested, look at more videos, look at more research from people who have actually been in the game. Like I said, Ziz has a great video on it if you want to see more from that. I'll put a link to it in the description. And this is just something that really surprised me, because I didn't think any company would just be this open with greed. And I think the plan from Blizzard is pretty simple. Go as crazy as possible with microtransactions on launch to get as many whales to invest in it as possible off rip. So you'll have a ton of people spending a ton of money over the course of the first 2 weeks or whatever, and then you make a big statement, a huge hoopla about, we're listening to our players. You guys are unsatisfied with our model for microtransactions, and we're doing something about it. We're putting the kibosh on it. Our foot's coming down. We're changing the microtransaction model, and then they're going to dial it back as this big heroic moment. We listened to you guys. We're making it better. Even though from the get-go they knew it was too much, but they also knew people wouldn't care and would spend a ton of money on it. So they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, where it's not a PR disaster and it gives them good brownie points with gamers when they eventually come forward and say, all right, we listened and now we're scaling it back. And I do think they are going to scale it back at some point. But in its current state, I wouldn't recommend the game unless you are purely going to free to play. I highly encourage you, if you're really just having that itch to play Diablo Immortal, play it without spending any money. It is possible. The early game, in fact, from what I've understood, is fine, completely fine free to play. It's not until you get towards the end game where the pay to win elements really come into full effect. So if you have to play the game, please just don't spend money on it to support this kind of practice, because it's terrible. And if they see huge returns on it, it's really only going to get worse for more games in the future once they can see what they can get away with. So, yeah, that's really about it. See ya. Character growth. It's an extremely important tool when it comes to storytelling, and it's also an extremely important part of getting older. As you age, you're going to go through a metamorphosis, both physically and likely mentally as well. So, today I'm going to talk about my recent character growth. You see, my friends, I have grown, not in height, but in wisdom and experience, and I look back at the Charlie of old with disappointment that I could ever be so naive and short-sighted. 5-6 years ago, maybe, I was a very outspoken advocate of digital downloads. I used to preach the gospel that physical media is a fossil, it's archaic, and we need to wash our hands of it and get into the digital age. Ones and zeros are the future. Tangibility is cringe. How wrong I was. Those words are like venom leaving my lips now. In recent years, I sing a much different tune. I now believe physical media is more important than ever, because we have seen time and time again the evils of not actually owning what you pay for. The reason I'm talking about this is because Ubisoft just went full mask off, saying gamers need to get comfortable not owning their games. Fundamentally, that's kind of the point they were boiling down. Basically, he was saying that for subscriptions to truly take off, gamers need to be more comfortable not really owning their products. So I don't have a crystal ball, but when you look at the different subscription services that are out there, we've had a rapid expansion over the last couple of years, but it's still relatively small compared to the other models. One of the things we saw is that gamers are used to, a little bit like DVD, having and owning their games. That's the consumer shift that needs to happen. They got comfortable not owning their CD collection or DVD collection. That's a transformation that's been a bit slower to happen in games. As gamers grow comfortable in that aspect, you don't lose your progress. If you resume your game at another time, your progress file is still there. That's not been deleted. You don't lose what you've built in the game or your engagement with the game. It's just about feeling comfortable with not owning your game. Obviously, this statement didn't land super well, just a full-blown faceplant, especially because it's coming from Ubisoft, which is a company that has a worse reputation than asbestos. Nobody really likes Ubisoft in the gaming community, so hearing them say this kind of shit definitely made it taste even worse. But it's also nothing new. It seems everything wants to trend towards subscription-based services, and it's also not even new in gaming to not actually own your games. Biggest example is Steam. When you buy a game on Steam, you don't own it. In fact, in your agreement with Steam, you even agree that if you break the rules with Valve and they shut down your account, you don't get your games back. You don't get refunded and you don't get the games anymore. It dies with the account. So it's not unusual in the space to not actually own your products, but Steam is just a really good service with it that most people have trust in. You know what people have no trust in? Fucking Ubisoft. But going beyond that for just a moment, I truly think it is vital to actually own what you pay for, like a physical copy of it. The biggest example I keep giving is SpongeBob SquarePants. If you wanted to watch SpongeBob SquarePants start to finish right now, you could, it's through streaming services, but you're missing the best episode, the Panty Raid, because it got censored and pulled from streaming services along with another episode as well. So if you wanted the complete SpongeBob experience, you can't get it through the official channels. Your only options are to either have the physical media on the DVD box sets for the seasons, or you pirate it. That's it. I'm going off a little tangent here. I'm taking a dusty little path down a dirt road, but this is something I've talked about a lot recently on stream. When Donkey released his video on all the streaming platforms that are popping up, which is becoming a huge headache because there are more streaming platforms popping up than there are stars in the night sky, you can't really get a convenient experience anymore because everything is so divided. The best example Donkey provided was for trying to watch the entire Pokemon series. You have to go to like 15 different streaming platforms back and forth. So like seasons 1 through 5 on one, season 6 on another, then back to that first one for season 7. Then you have to go to like a completely separate one for season 8 and 9, and then to the fifth one for season 10. Like it's just all over the place, broken up like fucking Dragon Balls across the internet. It's becoming extremely expensive, extremely hard to keep track of what you can watch where. You have to be like Charles Xavier and Cerebro with all these different streaming services pop up just to connect the dots on watching a complete series or a complete series of movies, because they're all over the place with different deals, leading to them being scattered like Horcruxes. It's a fucking nuisance. And it's significantly more expensive than if you had just bought the physical media. You could save so many doubloons as if you just purchased the complete series of it physically and own it, actually own it. And in that situation, you don't lose access to it unless you misplace it or throw it in the trash or a burglar breaks in and steals it. They have to pry it from your cold dead hands to get your fucking complete Pokemon DVD set. But through streaming services, you are inevitably going to lose it because things come and go from streaming platforms every fucking day. So eventually, what you paid access for to get is going somewhere else, and you're probably going to have to buy a subscription to another service to continue to have access to it. It super sucks. And if anyone's got their thinking caps on here, all roads lead to piracy here. I'm not advocating for piracy, mind you. I'm just saying it's a natural byproduct by offering such a dog shit service. It was actually Gabe Newell of Valve who famously said, "Piracy is a service problem," meaning that if you're providing a bad service, it's going to lead to people pirating your shit because it's significantly easier than going through the proper channels. And that's the point we've reached. If you're trying to legally purchase things or go through the official means of getting what you want, it's a headache and it's hard. If you just pirate it, not only is it easier, but you also get the complete package and it's not going anywhere if they decide to take it to a different streaming platform, or in the case of gaming, if they decide to like take the game down or shut it off or something like that. You own it. That's another huge benefit. And you get the complete experience like with SpongeBob, where you get the episodes that are currently censored. So all of this is just increasing piracy prevalence. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, Ubisoft and all of the other suits that for some reason aren't seeing what every other sane person in the world is. It's just baffling because it doesn't take a genius to see this. Everyone sees how frustrating it is. And for Ubisoft to say like, hey, you know what? It's time you get more comfortable not owning your games. It's really out of touch. Especially, again, from Ubisoft. Keep in mind, they offer Uplay, which is probably the biggest joke the gaming community has ever been subjected to. And the only ones laughing at that comedy is Ubisoft, how they got away with releasing something so trash. It's baffling how bad Uplay is, but that's a whole different can of worms. Point is, right now I think it is more important than ever to actually own what you pay for. I've just had a complete perspective shift on this topic over the last couple of years because we keep seeing how detrimental it is when you don't actually own the product here, in gaming in particular. So yeah, I think Ubisoft is not wrong about this being kind of the future for gaming, where it's probably going to end up with everything offering some kind of subscription-based service, but it's not exactly a future to start pumping your fist over. I really do think owning the product is extremely important now, because we see how easily it can be snatched away for any multitude of reasons. So yeah, just wanted to talk about this a little bit because it kind of got thrust back into the limelight here with Ubisoft making these statements, and it's something I've been talking about on stream for a little while now. That's about it. See ya.